Where I'm from, stories aren't told in a hurry. They're told in the shade, under a palm tree, away from the heat, away from the noise, where everything slows down just enough to remember. Here the land carries more than footprints. It carries moments, people, generations, and sometimes one quiet story is all it takes to feel connected again. I'm Dina, and this is Under the Palm Tree, a podcast where I share stories inspired by Saudi culture, everyday lives, and the warm heritage. So sit with me in the shade and let's tell a story. My grandmother's house sits at the very end of a narrow path. Stone walls on both sides, a little wooden door, and a courtyard that always smelled like fire and dough. When I was a kid, she used to wake up before the sun just to make al-khubz al-janubiyya, the old way. No oven and no shortcuts, just a large rock with open fire, dough that needed real muscle, and a patience I still don't understand. I remember standing beside her, trying not to get in the way. She'd scoop flour like she was following a recipe she'd memorized decades before, even though she never wrote it down. Water, a pinch of salt, and some flour. That's it. But somehow her bread always tasted like something bigger, like the whole house was built around it. Once I asked her, "Yumma, how do you know when the dough is right?" She pressed her finger into it, listened for some secret signal only she could hear, and said, "It tells you." To this day I still have no clue what that means, but she said it with so much certainty that I didn't question it. The sound of her kneading was its own rhythm, steady, soft, and almost comforting. And when the sage got hot enough to glow, she'd stretch the dough so thin it looked like it might tear, then slap it onto a slab of stone with a sound that echoed across the whole courtyard. Every time she did it, I jumped a little, and every time she laughed at me. While the bread cooked, she told old stories about weddings that lasted until dawn, where kebsa was served in giant trays so heavy 2 people had to carry them. Stories about winters when khubz and leban were all they had, but somehow claimed they were the best meals of their lives. Stories about people I never met, but somehow felt close to. I didn't realize it then, but she wasn't just telling stories, she was teaching me what home actually means. But of course, time does what time does. Her hands got weaker, her back started hurting, and everything became too heavy for her to lift. The fire too hot for her to lean over. The woman who taught half the neighborhood how to make southern bread suddenly couldn't make it herself. One afternoon, when the air was cold enough, she called me. "Come sit," she said. She placed my hands in the flour bowl and guided me through everything. How much water I need, how warm it should be, when to stop mixing, and when to start kneading. My dough stuck everywhere, all over my fingers, the table, the bowl, and my shirt somehow. Her eyebrows twitched every time I did something wrong, but she never corrected me out loud. She just watched, nodded every now and then, like she was grading effort more than results. And I finally managed to slap my first piece of dough onto the sage. It came out crooked, burned on one side and pale on the other. Honestly, it looked like it had fought for its life, but she tore a piece, tasted it slowly, and said, "It tastes like someone who cares, and that's enough." At the time, I thought she was just being nice. But years later, traveling from region to region, I started to understand what she meant. Because I keep meeting people who cook the same way she did, with fire and instinct, with stories and with hands that remember what their parents taught them. I walk into a farmhouse and smell khubz on a sage, and it's like she's standing right behind me. I eat kebsa somewhere on the road and taste something familiar, even if I've never been there before. Traditions don't disappear. They just wait for someone to keep them alive. And every time I make al-khubz al-janubiyya, even when it comes out lopsided, I feel her teaching me all over again, not just how to cook, but how to hold on to where I come from. Thank you for sitting with me under the palm tree today. If this story reminded you of a place, a person, or a small quiet moment from your own life, carry it with you. It's worth more than you think. Join me next week for another story from home. Until then, stay grounded, stay gentle, and may your days always have a little shade.